Viktor stood at the gates of the maximum security colony, clutching a battered passport and his release certificate. 7 years. 7 years for failing to calculate the force of a blow in a drunken brawl. Now he was free. Nobody came to meet him. His wife had divorced him in the 3rd year of his sentence, taking their daughter and disappearing to another city. His mother had passed away 4 years ago. The news had arrived in a cold, formal telegram. Friends. What friends? The men he used to drink with had vanished the moment the handcuffs snapped shut. Viktor had 3,000 rubles to his name, his prison pay, a crumpled jacket, and absolute emptiness ahead. And then there was the stamp in his passport, the one that turned every job interview into a predictable form of torture. Do you have a residence permit? They'd ask at the hostel. No. Then we can't help you. No registration. He'd gone to a hiring agency. You don't have a temporary one yet. Come back when you do. It was a vicious circle. They wouldn't give him a job without a registration. Without a job, he had nowhere to live. And without a home, he couldn't get a residence permit. Around and around, until you broke and found yourself right back where you started. Viktor slept wherever he could, train stations, basements. Once, in a kindergartner's playhouse, where he'd crawled through a window, the cold autumn air seeping through his jacket. His money was melting away. He could feel himself sliding further toward the bottom each day, losing the last remnants of a human appearance. And then he remembered Zinaida Petrovna. They had met through letters, a strange connection. It was a kind of fashion in the zone, lonely old women writing to prisoners, looking for someone to talk to. One of the inmates had given him her address. Write to her, at least she might send you a parcel. Viktor had written out of boredom, and she had replied. 2 years of correspondence. Her jagged, old-fashioned script on lined paper had become a window to a normal world. She wrote about the weather, the neighbors, how her grandchildren had forgotten the way to her doorstep. She wrote so simply and warmly that Viktor sometimes caught himself waiting for her letters more than the visits that never came. Zinaida Petrovna lived alone in her own house on the outskirts of the village. Her children had left long ago, her husband had died 20 years earlier. In one of her last letters, she had written, "They say the house is big and empty. If only someone would help with the housework, chop some firewood." Viktor dialed her number, his fingers shaking from the cold. He spoke awkwardly, but honestly. "Zinaida Petrovna. It's me, Viktor. The one who wrote to you. I've been released. Things are really bad. May I come to you? I'll work, I'll help. Just let me get a registration. I'll get back on my feet." A long pause, then a quiet, tired voice, "All right. Come on, then." The house stood at the edge of the village, rickety but strong, with carved window frames and an old apple tree in the yard. Zinaida Petrovna met him on the porch. She was small, bent with the years, wrapped in a faded headscarf. Her face was a dense network of wrinkles, her eyes faded, her hands covered in age spots. 75 years, and every one had left its mark. "Hello," she said. "You'd better come in, now that you're here." Viktor crossed the threshold. The air smelled of old wood, mothballs, and profound loneliness. Zinaida Petrovna watched him for a long time over tea, her gaze sad. "I can register you," she said finally. "But the local police officer won't allow it for a stranger. But if my husband were to, that would be another matter. On paper, of course. Just formally." Viktor choked on his tea. "What? I don't understand." "What's not to understand, boy? We need to sign at the registry office. Then the registration is automatic. I don't care anymore. I'm old, I don't need anything. But you need a place to live. Then, when you're settled, we'll get divorced. It's just a piece of paper." It was wild, absurd, but Viktor had no choice. They signed at the district registry office a week later. It was a quiet affair, without witnesses. The elderly clerk looked at them with poorly hidden surprise but said nothing. And just like that, a stamp was in his passport, and he and Zinaida Petrovna were spouses. The first evening as a husband, Viktor spent in the kitchen, helping to chop cabbage for borscht. Zinaida Petrovna was silent. She showed him his room, a tiny space with an iron bed and an old wardrobe. "Get settled, boy. The bedding is in the closet," she said, and left for her own room. Viktor lay down and stared at the cracked ceiling. What had he done? He'd married an old woman for a stamp in his passport. This was the bottom, the very real bottom of his life. He couldn't sleep. Late in the night, he got up for a glass of water. Passing Zinaida Petrovna's bedroom, he heard a strange sound. Quiet sobbing. The door was ajar. Viktor froze, then, not knowing why, gently pushed it open and looked inside. He couldn't believe his eyes. Dozens of photographs hung on the bedroom wall. A huge collage, all different sizes. A young Zinaida in a white dress next to a broad-shouldered man in a suit. Them with a baby. Family feasts, birthdays, a boy and a girl growing from photo to photo. Graduations, weddings, grandchildren. And in the center, the largest photo, Zinaida Petrovna, much younger, perhaps in her 50s, hugging her entire family. Husband, 2 children with their spouses, 4 grandchildren. All happy, all together. Next to this photo was a calendar. Today's date was circled in red marker. Zinaida Petrovna sat on the bed, looking at the photo. She held a mobile phone. The screen glowed in the dark. Viktor could make out the contact list: Helen, daughter; Sergei, son; Masha, granddaughter; Andrew, grandson. She methodically dialed number after number, waited, listened to the ringing, and then hung up. No one answered. No one. "Today is my birthday," she said quietly, without turning around. She knew he was there. Everyone is so busy. Helen has her job, Sergei has his business, the grandchildren don't even know who I am. The last time I saw them was 3 years ago. That picture there. She gestured weakly at the collage. That's all I have left. Just pictures. My husband, God rest his soul, died before he could retire. And I've been here for 20 years now. 20 years, keeping our house. And the children, they grew up, they flew away. And they were right too. I'm not angry. Her voice wavered. But it's so empty, Viktor. So empty that sometimes you could go mad. I sit here all day alone. The TV chatters, and I listen and think, is this it? Did I live my life just to die here alone? And the neighbors will find me in a week. Viktor was silent, not knowing what to say. When you wrote that first letter, she continued, I was so happy. Like a fool. Someone remembered me. Someone needed my words. I waited for your letters more than for calls from my children, because at least you answered. She finally turned to him. Her face was streaked with tears, old and exhausted. I agreed to this marriage. Not because I'm kind, no. But because I can't be alone anymore. You see. I just wanted someone to be in the house again. So that at least someone would say my name. So the silence wouldn't be so complete. Viktor sank onto the edge of the bed. A lump formed in his throat. Zinaida Petrovna, I know. I know you just need the registration from me. And then I'll leave. That's right, I'm young, I'll sort my life out. And you won't be alone for a few months. That's already a kind of happiness. Viktor looked at the collage of photos, the happy family that no longer existed, the old woman everyone had forgotten. And suddenly he realized, he was forgotten, too. His wife had forgotten him, his daughter had forgotten him, his friends had forgotten him. Society had written him off. He was a ghost, just like her. 2 people, thrown to the sidelines of life. I'm not leaving, Viktor said. Zinaida Petrovna raised her surprised eyes to him. I'm not leaving until you tell me I'm not needed. I'll help with the house. I'll chop the firewood, fix the roof. I'll get a job, bring in money. I won't leave you. Because I know what it's like to be unnecessary to anyone. She stared at him for a long time, and fresh tears traced paths down her wrinkled cheeks. Oh, Lord, she whispered. Who are you? Viktor, he said simply. Your husband. On paper. For the first time in many years, Zinaida Petrovna smiled a real, living smile. In the morning, Viktor rose with the first roosters and started chopping wood. The work came easily, prison had taught him not to fear physical labor. By lunchtime, the woodpile had doubled. Zinaida Petrovna fed him cabbage soup, the best he'd eaten in years. They ate in silence, but it was a different silence, not empty, but filled with a quiet understanding. The roof over the shed leaks, she said, pouring the tea. I've been meaning to fix it. I'll fix it, Viktor nodded. Show me where the tools are. She showed him, and for the first time in years, she felt alive in her own home. That evening, as Viktor was heading to his room, Zinaida Petrovna stopped him. Viktor, tell me, are you really going to stay? He turned around. Of course it's true. But you need a real life. A family. Children. I had a family, he interrupted quietly. I lost it all because I was a fool. I drank, I fought, I didn't appreciate what I had. Now I have a chance to just be a human being. To help someone who needs it. Maybe this is the real life. Zinaida Petrovna wiped her eyes with her apron. You're a good man, she said, her voice trembling. Better than my own children, my own flesh and blood. Oh, don't say that, Viktor objected. I spent 7 years behind bars. I nearly killed a man. But you've repented. I see it. And they forgot their own mother, and they don't even repent. Viktor was silent. He had nothing to say. A month passed. Viktor got a job at a sawmill. The work was hard, but the pay was decent and regular. Every evening he returned home to a hot dinner and quiet conversation at the kitchen table. Zinaida Petrovna seemed to come alive again. She cooked, she cleaned, she even planted flowers by the porch. One evening, the doorbell rang. A well-dressed woman in her 40s stood on the doorstep, a look of disgust on her face. Mom, she said incredulously. Zinaida Petrovna froze. Helen. My daughter. What are you doing here? A neighbor called me. Said you're living with some men. What nonsense is this? There was no warmth in her daughter's voice, only irritation. She spotted Viktor, who was holding an axe, about to chop more wood. She looked him up and down and frowned. And who is this? This is Viktor, daughter, Zinaida Petrovna answered quietly. My husband. Her daughter's face contorted instantly. Have you lost your mind, you old fool? You've fallen for a swindler. He's after your house, I suppose. Helen, stop it. Don't. Shut up, Mom. I'm calling the police right now. Let them check this character out. Viktor put down the axe and looked at her calmly. Go ahead. Check. I was released 2 months ago. Did a 7-year stretch. It's all clean, the papers are in order. Helen recoiled. Mom. You let a convict into the house. Have you completely lost your grip? He helps me, daughter, Zinaida Petrovna said firmly. More than you have in your entire life. And what about me? I have a job, I have children, a family, her daughter retorted. But you had a mother, the old woman replied quietly. You didn't call her. Not even on her birthday. Helen was taken aback. Well. I forgot. It's just. Mom, I have so much to do. You're always busy. And Sergei is busy. And I am here alone. For 3 years. Alone. But I send you money. To hell with your money. For the first time in many years, Zinaida Petrovna raised her voice. I needed you to call. To come. To hug me. But you didn't come. He did. She pointed at Viktor. Helen, he is not a saint. He made a mistake, and he paid for it. But he is here. He chops the wood, he fixes the roof, he talks to me. He doesn't forget me. And you, my own children, you have forgotten me. Mom, what are you saying? Leave, Helen. Just go. If you come as a daughter, with love, I will be glad. But if you come to make trouble again, then don't bother coming at all. Her daughter stood for a moment longer, then turned and left, slamming the gate loudly behind her. Zinaida Petrovna returned to the house and sank heavily onto a bench. Viktor sat down beside her. Maybe I shouldn't have. She whispered. Maybe I should have kept quiet. No, Viktor shook his head. You told her the truth. And the truth, sometimes it hurts. She took his hand, her old, wrinkled one, and squeezed it. Thank you. For being here. Thank you, Viktor replied. For accepting me. A year passed. Zinaida Petrovna died quietly in her sleep. Viktor found her in the morning when he brought her tea. She lay peacefully, a slight smile on her lips. Her children and grandchildren came to the funeral. Helen cried hysterically. Sergei stood with his head bowed. Viktor stood to the side, by the fence. He wasn't family, he was just someone who had been there. After the funeral, a notary approached him. "Are you Viktor Kovalev?" "Yes." "Zinaida Petrovna left a will. The house and the land plot are yours." Viktor couldn't believe it. "It can't be." "How?" "She has children, grandchildren. She changed her will 6 months ago. She wrote, Viktor was more of a son to me than my own children. He has earned it." Helen and Sergei stood nearby. Their daughter's face was twisted with emotion. "This is illegal. We'll contest it." But they didn't. Somewhere deep down, they understood their mother had been right. Viktor stayed in the house. He repaired it completely, painted the fence, planted new apple trees. He got a job at the plant as a foreman, and later married a kind woman who knew his past and did not judge him. Every year on the anniversary of Zinaida Petrovna's death, he went to the cemetery. He brought flowers, stood in silence, and thought that sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who stays with you when everyone else is too busy. He thought that forgiveness is possible, that a new life is possible, even after prison, even from the very bottom. And that love comes in many forms, and the real kind asks for nothing in return, it just asks to be near. On Zinaida Petrovna's tombstone, next to the standard inscription, he had another line carved. "Thank you for giving me a chance."